Mabu. Hi everyone. This is Owen. I welcome you to Philosophical Uncovering of the Human Person. This session will be focusing on holistic perspective. Learning about this perspective will widen our understanding on the different views of life. Holistic perspective is designed to provide a framework for understanding reality using the three concepts of existence, immaterial as well as material existences, interaction, reflexive and relativistic interactions, interrelation, how we relate to ourselves, each other and all around us. It is an open and inclusive model, a theory of everything. A holistic point of view gives you a chance for acceptance, tolerance and compassion for others, especially those who don't share your same point of view. That means that you can have useful conversations with people who don't think like you do. To facilitate the discussion of the lesson, here are the guide questions. 1. What is holistic perspective in the context of holism? 2. How is holistic perspective applied to sciences and social sciences? 3. What is the difference between holistic perspective and partial perspective? Answer them after each subtopic. Holistic perspective is much related to the principle of holism. It is therefore significant to look at the nature of holism for better understanding of holistic perspective. Let us unveil holism in the context of its meaning and its development as a philosophical thought. Holism is derived from the Greek word holos, which means all, whole, entire. Its concept is centered on the idea that the nature of a system, sciences, social sciences, and other systems cannot be explained by its parts alone, but the whole system determines the importance and nature of its component. To explain, let us take the wheel and its relation to the whole car. It can be noted that the purpose and function of the wheel cannot be appreciated if it is removed from the car. However, when the wheel is connected to the car and becomes part of the whole car, the purpose and function of the wheel become clear and appreciated. Thus, the purpose and function are seen and appreciated in the lens of the car as a whole system. Although the term holism was not yet coined during ancient times, its concept was vividly and concisely reflected by Aristotle 384–322 BCE in his Metaphysics. He said that, the whole is more than the sum of its parts. By the 15th century, Baruch de Spinoza 1632–1677 strengthened the emergence of holism in the mystical dimension of Western philosophy and sociology, which was reminiscent of Parmenides circa 515–450 BCE. The term holism was first used by General Jan Christian Smuts 1870–1950, fourth Prime Minister of South Africa. He conceived holism in his book Holism and Evolution in 1926. According to him, there is the tendency in nature to form wholes that are greater than the sum of the parts through creative evolution. He further explained, this factor, called holism in the sequel, underlies the synthetic tendency in the universe, and is the principle which makes for the origin and progress of wholes in the universe. This whole-making or holistic tendency is fundamental in nature, that it has a well-marked ascertainable character, and that evolution is nothing but the gradual development of progressive series of wholes, stretching from inorganic beginnings to the highest levels of spiritual creation. The application of the principle of holism and holistic perspective can be seen in many systems such as sciences, social sciences, etc. In the sciences, holism is applied but not limited to agriculture, physics and ecology. Holism in agriculture can be seen in the principles advocated by permaculture, which means permanent agriculture. The great proponent of permaculture, Bill Mollison, stated in his treatise the aim to create systems that are ecologically sound and economically viable as the prime goal of permaculture. Permaculture's set design principles are centered on whole systems thinking, simulating, or directly utilizing the patterns and resilient features observed in natural ecosystems. These principles are utilized in a growing number of fields, from regenerative agriculture, rewilding, and community resilience. Physics shares application of holism with the idea of hollow movement. The hollow movement of David Bohm relates to holism. David Bohm describes the hollow movement in which, according to him, moment to moment the cosmos flickers between the implicate and explicate order, enfolding the present moment into the implicate order and unfolding the next moment into the explicate order in a rapid transcend and include movement of undivided wholeness. It brings together the holistic principle of undivided wholeness in which the abstraction of the parts is from the whole. In ecology, holism is adopted by the idea of holistic ecological community. Holistic ecological community is an ecosystem where the species within the community are interdependent for keeping the balance and stability of the system. Every species plays an important part in the overall well-being of the ecosystem in which the community resides. Coexistence is likely to be found in communities structured after this model. The limnologist, zoologist, and ecologist August Thienemann was one of the first to expand on the organismic idea of ecological communities. A biokenosis, according to Thienemann, is not just an aggregate, a sum of organisms that coexist in the same biotope owing to similar exogenous habitat conditions, but a supra-individual whole, a togetherness, and a for each other of organisms. Holism is not only applied to the sciences but also to social sciences such as sociology, anthropology, psychology, etc. The application of holism in sociology is seen in the Greeks' concept of polis. Ancient Greeks looked at society as a whole. Polis was established by the Greeks to illustrate their principle on a holistic society in which the individual found identity in the whole society. Thus, the individual was ready to serve his or her community because without the polis his or her life had no sense whatsoever. Utilization of holism in anthropology is illustrated in holistic anthropology. Holistic anthropology tries to consider all human aspects and his activities in understanding culture. This means that holism understands aspects of societies across space and time and the entirety of a system as a whole. Thus, anthropologist looks at the context of society as a whole when analyzing any specific feature. Anthropologists like Labar emphasized holism in anthropology, as indicated by his classic 1954 work, The Human Animal. He illustrated in this book the reciprocal relationships between particular human characteristics like language, family, and culture and the biology and evolution of the human species. Later on, he developed this idea and stated that human nature has a part in religion and even gender. Psychology contributes also to the use of holism in the view of Gestalt therapy. Gestalt therapy is humanistic psychotherapy which considers a holistic approach to the human experience because it stresses individual responsibility and awareness of present psychological and physical needs. Frederick Perls founded Gestalt therapy in the 1940s with his wife, Laura. According to this psychology of perception, when organisms are presented with a collection of elements, they perceive a complete pattern or configuration as opposed to individual pieces set against a background. Since holism looks into the parts in the lens of the whole, any doctrine that looks at the whole in the lens of the parts is rejected. Such doctrines include reductionism: the whole can be explained by a single constituent part; vitalism: the whole can be understood in terms of a single living element; and mechanism: the whole can be conceived in terms of a single physical element. Integrating the whole as a principle to a holistic perspective, it can be deduced that holistic perspective considers interdependence of components affecting the system or impact of the factors to a phenomenon. Thus a holistic view looks at the components or factors in the lens of the whole system or phenomenon. On the other hand, considering the doctrine from reductionism, vitalism, and mechanism, a partial point of view limits itself to a specific factor or part to understand a system or phenomenon. To illustrate, holistic perspective is looking into the different sides of the cube while partial view is seeing only one side of the square. When doing philosophy, one should aim for a comprehensive viewpoint rather than a selective one. Philosophy as a discipline supports the development of a holistic viewpoint, which is one of its strengths. Philosophy actually avoids being partial or one-dimensional, and philosophers don't confine their research to a single subject or line of inquiry, instead using a multidimensional or holistic approach. In connection, philosophical holism does not always entail letting up one's own viewpoint and accepting that of others. Instead, it encourages comparing one's perspective with that of other thinkers in order to develop a better, more comprehensive viewpoint. The principle of holism can be applied to everyday life by developing a holistic perspective. Having holistic perspective benefits an individual because he or she becomes open-minded. He or she does not delimit himself or herself to only few ideas or perspectives. In so doing, the person can be able to arrive on a proper judgment or conclusion. To conclude, if one wanted to gain wisdom, one of the things he or she needs to have is a holistic perspective. In summary, the key points of this discussion are: holistic perspective is designed to provide a framework of everything for understanding reality through an open and inclusive approach. Holistic perspective in the context of holism is centered on the idea that the nature of a system cannot be explained by its parts alone, but the whole system determines the importance and nature of its component. Holistic perspective as a deliberate reflection is applied both in sciences and social sciences, thus in human activities. Holistic perspective is integrating different views, while partial perspective is considering only few views and understanding concepts and issues. Having holistic perspective benefits an individual because he/she becomes wiser. Having learned about holistic perspective, let us apply what we have learned to our life for us to become wiser. Thank you and Mabuhay.